guys, if you get one DM that's like, hey,
Yeah.
what do you use for this? Like, that's an opportunity.
No, 100%. Yeah. You really don't. People, that's actually a question I get all the time. Like, how many followers do I need to be an influencer? And I'm like, why are you
One to
thinking
DM
of,
you.
yeah, literally, like, why are you thinking that? And actually, I think, like, if you do have like 500 followers, like, those are like highly engaged followers, I imagine. Like, those are 500 of like what is likely your friends, like real friends.
Yeah.
And they want to know what you're, wearing.
Hey, Allie, welcome to the show. So happy to have you on.
Yeah, thanks, Shannon. Well, I guess I'll introduce myself. Yeah.
Go for it.
I'm Allie. I am the CEO of Be Social. We are an influencer agency based in LA. We help brands and we help creators.
Awesome. And when you talk about, influencer marketing, which is what we're going to get into today, how do you define what an influencer is?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think a lot of people think it's just about how many followers you have or what your engagement is, but I think everyone is an influencer. If you're creating content that people are digesting and viewing, then you are an influencer. So, in terms of our agency and who we represent as a creator, typically that's people who have around 50,000 followers or higher and 3% engagement. But again, I think with apps like TikTok emerging, like you can become an influencer overnight and create such like a niche following. So, like I said before, I think anyone can be an influencer no matter what size.
So, what tips would you share with our folks? Let's say, and I know that we always hear, I feel like I hear a lot of content out there
Hmm.
from the perspective of if you want to become an influencer or if you want to use influencer income from that side of the transaction. But I want to start with the other side, which is brands using influencer marketing. And I want to dispel a little bit of a myth here or an assumption that may be in your head that, well, the brands that use influencer marketing are like Nike and like drink companies and like really big corporations. And, it's out of my reach, it's out of my realm.
Hmm.
And I think that if we have to start thinking a little bit more local to that and realize that influencer marketing is available to any brand, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that is such a myth. And I think when we get brands reaching out to our agency, the first thing is sort of this feeling of like, I probably can't afford this, or this is just out of
Right.
reach for me right now. And of course, a company like Nike is probably spending millions of dollars working on creator marketing, working with influencers. But if you're a small business, there is a different type of entryway to working with influencers. And my suggestion is always just to do an influencer seeding program. So that's taking whatever your product is and gifting it to influencers and getting them to create content. So I think that's like the perfect way to start. And really, on that end, it's either paying for an agency to handle it or doing it in house. And then, it's the product cost.
And that makes sense on products, but how would you leverage influencer marketing as a service-based business?
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot harder. And like, quite frankly, we don't typically work too much with that. I would say the closest thing would be
Hmm.
like a fitness studio or maybe
Right.
like a massage therapist or something along those lines. I mean, I think like with anything in business, it's like people like doing business with people they trust. And I think using influencers to share that message about your business is a good way to start. So I would say, like, oh my God, I'm saying, for you, for example, I just had a full meltdown.
Go for it.
Would be, utilizing your services for different influencers and having them talk about it, right? Like sharing a story about how you help them or whatever it might be. So again, it's just the same concept, but like delivering your services for free.
Yeah, I think it's about showing the experience, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
any type of service or business where you can demonstrate an experience, you
Right.
can utilize influencer marketing because you can document the experience, right? You can even go to like a massage therapy. I've seen this before, where like you go to a massage and like you can take clips of what's going on, the like the look of the place, you
Yeah.
do like taking like enjoying the services like while you're getting a mani pedi, even like whatever it may be.
Right.
For me, documenting you getting your taxes done may or may not actually be good for my marketing, but it
Yeah.
would be, in theory, it's basically like if you can create an experience and illustrate that experience, you can utilize influence marketing and you can have someone do that. And I
Right.
think, why do you think, this is kind of a side note, but like, why do you think brands are so shy about asking for stuff like that. I think asking for people to document their experiences, give reviews,
Yeah.
and help their brand online. I feel like a lot of people are shy about that, or it's an afterthought.
Yeah, I think, I mean, if you don't have someone on your team that's like thinking about influencer marketing, I think, yeah, it is an afterthought at the end of the day. I mean, I kind of have
Hmm.
the opposite experience because I work with influencers day to day. I feel like every
Right.
brand is asking me, can you do this? Can you have this person come here and do that? Like, so I feel like there's obviously the brands who are super on top of it. But I think too, it's like if we go back to what we said before about anyone's an influencer, like if you have super fans or really like loyal clients, like having them create content and share with their 800 followers is still valuable. You don't have to have someone with
Right.
a million followers coming into, to your office or whatever it might be.
And I think another assumption I've heard, or a assumption that is easy to make right now,
Hmm.
is that influencer marketing is basically affiliate marketing.
Hmm.
And I think those are a little bit different. Can you explain your interpretation of those two different things, influencer marketing versus affiliate? How are they similar and what's different?
Yeah, I mean, they're really tied together nowadays. So I think affiliate is typically where, I mean, affiliate, influencer, blogger, whatever term you want to utilize, is someone sharing about a business and typically getting some sort of like commission for sharing that from people buying the product through their links. So they can use
Mhm.
links, they can use like promo codes and things like that to track that. A lot of that is actually part of the influencer campaigns that we work on. So typically they want, the influencer to share the content as well as share some sort of code and then they make a commission. So again, they're like an affiliate while also being like paid for that content. I think too, affiliate marketing is a great place to start as an entryway to start working with brands more if you're on the influencer side. And you can do that so easily through like Amazon affiliates, or there's an app called LTK, which used to be called Reward Style. And I have clients that are making literally six figures a month just on affiliate marketing. And then they also do
Wow.
their brand partnerships. So if you have an audience that's like interested in like what you're wearing or what you're buying or what you're eating, like sharing links to those things and making commissions is like such a great entryway to that.
I love that. So I mean, like, what are some tips you would have, kind of like switching gears into the influencer, right? What are some tips you would have to being a quote unquote, being a good influencer? Like, what are
Mm-hmm.
some of the characteristics, traits, behaviors that you see in the most successful people who are utilizing influencer status, if you will,
Yeah.
to make money online?
Hmm. Well, I think authenticity, like I think we have like a lot of like influencer fatigue as consumers, right? Like we're so sick of seeing advertisements and people sharing about brands they probably don't even use. So I'd say the first thing would be authenticity and like you can tell like if a partnership feels really forced or fake. I like to look at influencers, they end up doing a partnership with like say their dream brand because they had like organically been posting about that brand for years. So it
Hmm.
totally is true. I think too, it's like you have to be very creative. Constantly creating content is hard. I mean, some of these
Yeah.
influencers are like little media empires or like advertising agencies where they're just like pushing out tons of content daily. And you think like, oh, that's such an easy job. But if you actually had to do that every day, like it's taxing. Like you have to come up with concepts and posts and it's also like you're always on, right? And you're always on for people to critique you too. So
Hmm.
having a thick skin, I think, is important as well. Um,
Yeah.
but then I think also someone who's like nimble and able to evolve, and there's always like a new platform coming up or something new that you have to adjust to. Like Instagram always used to be photos, now it's video. So if you were a photo creator, now you're having to make videos, which is like more difficult and takes more time. So I would
Right.
say, yeah, it's like ever changing, needing to be creative and authentic.
I love that. And I think what people don't realize is, and what I want to encourage you to do listening is open yourself up to the idea of influencer marketing on both sides of the equation, because you may be an attractive influencer for some type of brand to actually make money off of. And as a brand, if you run a business, there are so many opportunities for you to utilize this type of marketing in your business by having someone uh, utilize your service, utilize your product, and simply
Hmm.
post about it. to build credibility, to build a little bit of awareness and stuff like that, right? Um, do you have any success stories, Allie, of, really good relationships or really good deals that clients have gotten or arranged, right? Because I think that it varies so much, because I've seen, this is what I'm thinking, is I've seen so many different structures of agreements, right? Like there's the
Mhm.
show the product, post this many times a week, and they're super structured and super rigid about these are what you need to do. And some of
Mhm.
them are just kind of like whatever, like they're really loose
Yeah.
and they're kind of like, you
Yeah.
know, a little bit more lenient. What are some of the successful deals that you've seen, or some examples that you can share that may be more creative?
Yeah, I think you're like spot on with that. And I feel strongly that there has to be a change in the way brands work with influencers, because
Hmm.
brands treat it like traditional media and it's not that at all. And so they try to control the message 100%. And that's just like not the way to go about it. You hired this influencer because you like what they post and they built this audience and they know what their audience likes. So lean into
Yeah.
that. And actually, my most favorite partnerships that I get to work on are the ones that are just like that. So we work with this company called Dine Beauty. And originally they would, send us these briefs and we had to, send the content in, get it approved. But eventually they just like decided to trust the process. And now it's just like, yeah, post on that date and we don't even need to look at it. Like we trust that you'll get the messaging across and it'll look good for your audience because that's why we hired you. And those are my favorite types of partnerships. It's the ones that are like micromanaged that I'm just like, oh, why are we even doing this? Go run an ad on the radio or something if you want, if you know what I mean? Like it's like,
Yeah,
what are we doing?
if you're gonna have the script and the
Yeah.
design and everything, if you're gonna have complete control over the process, then who's the influencer?
Exactly. It's like, yeah, it's like your brand is like go speak to yourself on your own social media. Like, you know what I mean? So,
Exactly. Go build your
yeah.
own social media brand
Yeah.
and do it on yours. Yeah, I
Yeah.
totally agree. How do you think the expectations of brands and of influencers have changed in the last couple of years, especially with, like you mentioned, the evolution of platforms like Instagram? I mean, it's a
Yeah.
totally different look and feel right now than it was in just 2019. So,
Hmm.
and which is different than 2016, right? So,
Yeah.
how are brands and influencers adjusting their expectations? Like how is it evolving?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like what's been hardest for us on our end is that, the expectations now are you have to produce like a 3-minute video and it has to be really creative. And we're getting the same amount of money as when we had to just like submit a photo and post that. So I think there's this like expectation that is like very difficult to meet. And then on top of that, because there's so much chatter about ROI in the influencer space, like
Hmm.
brands are really pushy with getting their ROI and making sure they're making money on this partnership. And that's not always the goal. Sometimes it's credibility, it's the reach, it's the impressions, but at the end of the day, these brands now are just focused on the sales that they're getting from these partnerships, and that can be really difficult, especially if they micromanage the process and make you post something that's scripted and we knew all along wouldn't really perform very well. So I think that expectation
Yeah.
has been really difficult. I think too, it's like on the brand side, which I understand, but it's like, a lot of these bigger corporate companies, like these timelines are so strict. They like reach out to you and it's like, we want content tomorrow. They don't quite understand like the media planning that goes behind this. And I think there's a lot of pressure in that area too. But also, the landscape has changed in that there are so many influencers now that getting brand deals, I think, is harder for some of the like OG creators that have been around for 10 years, because we have new media, platforms popping up like a TikTok or what and a
Hmm.
Be Real, which I think brands are going to start monetizing on soon.
I think so too. I wouldn't be surprised. And I mean, from what you just said, would you classify it as like brands are kind of short-sighted in wanting immediate results, immediate outcomes from the marketing, as opposed to investing in the long-term relationship or the long-term trust building that, in my opinion, generates a bigger return and is probably a better use of time? I feel like they're
Hmm.
looking for the quick wins, right?
Yeah, I think it's like 50-50. Like you have the brands and the
Hmm.
agencies that manage those campaigns that want just the quick wins. They want the promo code redemptions. And if you don't
Yep.
hit that, they're like completely upset with you. But then there's the other ones that understand the other side of it, and it's the credibility. It's also like the content you get from it, right? That you can, the UGC that you can repost and put in your newsletter or your social media, like that's valuable. Think how much it costs to set up like a full day shoot and get video content, like hire an influencer to do that at like a much lower rate. So, yeah,
Yeah, and they can leverage what they're already doing on social media.
right.
I think there's what people have to do, what brands should do is like you find an influencer, but let's say that influencer, has a character. They'll do
Hmm.
videos as a character or
Yeah.
with a certain outfit on all the time or in a certain place, and that's like part of their familiarity, part of their brand.
Hmm.
The first one I think of is like Adam Rose and his blue cardigan.
Hmm.
Do you follow Adam
No,
Rose?
I don't.
Oh, okay. So he's a guy who does like dances on TikTok, and he's an old child actor, but now he
Okay.
is on TikTok, really popular. But they do a lot of
Yeah.
these dances, but he is always wearing the same blue cardigan. It's like a staple, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like the thing is, if a brand were to work with him, it's like he wouldn't not be wearing that, or even if it was
Hmm.
clothing, like he would still be wearing that in the video. And I think that there's a degree of like the brands kind of have to understand that there's an expectation that the followers will have of the influencer in how they stylistically do their content, and they'll know if
Hmm.
something is offbeat or not consistent or
Yeah.
not their signature style. And then you have to like kind of go with the flow with that and say just embrace the signature thing that they do, but
Hmm.
infuse the product or service into that. And I think that's where
Hmm.
it gets mixed in really well.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. I've done like a few campaigns where I have some influencers who kind of go into character on like their TikTok or whatnot.
Right.
And I love when an influencer manager at a brand like reaches out and obviously is like a fan and a follower and understands this influencer's content and comes
Yeah.
up with an idea that's super creative that like ties in who they are. And I think that is like clear that they like know what they're doing in the influencer space where it's like they're not trying to create the message, they're using the influencer to like help them.
Yeah, and they're being selective about who they're going after and knowing how contextually to utilize their influence.
Hmm.
Speaking of that, you mentioned aligning with brands and such. What are
Hmm.
some of the ways that, and again from both sides, how can an influencer find a brand that aligns well with them, and vice versa? How can brands find influencers that align well with them, as opposed to like simply Googling, I'll use another one. Was it Charlie from TikTok, Charlie D'Amelio, like the
Yeah.
number
Hmm.
one, you know who she is? So
Yep.
like, it like not everything makes sense for every
Hmm.
influencer to promote,
Hmm.
right? If she promoted, I don't know what, like I'm just gonna sound funny, but if she promoted like Viagra, that would be
Yeah. Yeah.
hilarious.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it's like that makes no effing sense.
Right.
That makes no
Yeah.
effing sense why this young girl would be
Yeah.
doing this type of product. So
Right.
how do you kind of like, kind of match make in a sense? Like, do you do any of that in the agency, or do you look for influencers
Yeah.
for brands,
Yeah.
and what's
We
kind of the
definitely do.
process?
Yeah, so that's like usually a big part of it. I mean, brands will come to us and have like a sense of who they would want to work with. Like, oh, we really like this influencer. We want more like her. And
Right.
a big part of our job is like what we call the casting process, and that's finding the list of influencers we want to hire or work with. So typically we utilize something called Creator IQ, which is
Hmm.
influencer software. It's probably $50,000 a year to utilize this software. So it is
Wow.
very expensive, and not every brand obviously can afford that. So I would say like alternatives would be just using Instagram and doing this similar to a certain creator and finding a bunch of people that way and kind of doing it manually.
Now,
There's
what
also
does Creator IQ do though? Well, sorry, what does Creator IQ actually do? Does it help like shorten the process to locate influencers
Yeah,
in a certain
definitely.
category?
So it's like a database of influencers, either new
Got
or
it.
ones that we've added and we've worked with. So we can, look at different categories, engagement, age, location, and really like hone in on who we want to work with. Um,
Got it.
and then on TikTok, there's a free platform that TikTok created. It's called TikTok Creator Marketplace. And you can just make an account on that and you can actually search creators on there for free. And it's like a very easy user interface. So I would start there for TikTok. Not every creator is on it, but a lot are. So you can put in beauty, age 30, lives in Los Angeles, and you would find creators that way.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really nice. And then, sometimes it's just like as simple as like Googling like health and fitness lifestyles, like the top ones or whatever it might be. A lot of the like media outlets put lists together too, like a shape or a self. But yeah, I mean, the process for us too is also like just curating this database of influencers that we like working with and we know are easy to work with, and create good content. And that's what we house in our Creator IQ. And
I
then
love
if
that.
you're an influencer and you're looking for brands to work with, I mean, what we do with our creators is we have them make what we call a wish list, a brand wish list, and it's essentially just like going through your makeup bag, your kitchen, your closet, and like writing down all the brands that you actually wear, use, eat, etc. And then we start there and we start like outreaching to those different brands and then kind of build it from there. But I feel like it's, you obviously have more of a case for yourself if you can be like, yeah, I've been wearing like Old Navy sweaters since I was 10 years old. Like, here's all the content I produced about it, versus
Hmm.
just trying to reach out to Gucci and working with them when you've literally never worn Gucci. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's actually a good point. Like why not have Old Navy? They have money.
yeah, they do.
They have plenty of money.
Exactly.
That's so funny. Like now everyone's like, what brand are my sweatpants that
Yeah.
I've been in for 3 years?
Well, probably a lot of stuff, at least for me, like during the pandemic, is like I was ordering like crazy on Amazon. So it's like,
Hmm.
and that's why I make such a point for influencers to get on Amazon affiliate because, like,
Oh,
half the stuff in
totally.
your
Me too. I'm on
kitchen.
there. Every book recommendation, I
Oh,
put on my
yeah.
Amazon affiliate code,
Yep.
everything else. Guys, if you see my book recommendations, here's a hack. I'm an Amazon affiliate and I get a little tiny dime or so for every book that's sold, but
Yep.
why not? Why not? You're still paying the same amount. You don't pay any
Yeah.
more as a consumer. It's just you're going to be, helping that person get a kickback for telling you about the product.
Exactly. Yeah. I
Yeah,
don't know
I
why
love that.
you can also do an Amazon storefront. I don't know if you've done that
Hmm.
before. Yeah.
I haven't, but I know you can. Yeah.
Yeah. That should be next for
That's
you.
cool. I love actually, it's going to sound so funny, but it's like living out like a little childhood dream of like, think about creating your own bookstore with all your favorite books. Think about
Yeah.
creating your own little like shop of all your favorite things. It's actually
Mhm.
fun. It's like, let alone a
Mhm.
really fun business idea. It's actually really fun.
Yeah.
Um, but it's so funny because like use me as an example before, and I'm like, I don't know if anyone cares what an accountant does, but
I mean, I
sometimes
do.
sometimes it's like, so what do you use for this?
Yeah.
Uh,
Like, how do you
I
track receipts? Like, do you have a cute little thing that goes on your desk, or you probably do it
That's
digitally,
true.
but
I actually have, so this is fun. So here's how I use this as, I guess, like I wouldn't even call myself an influencer, but this is interesting. So I'm an affiliate for a ton of different brands. And I
yeah.
actually have in our website, at the bottom of our website, it says our favorite things or our faves. And you
Mhm.
can click on it and it's recommended people, service providers, software we use for our company, software we recommend to clients, tools to help you in business, like
Yeah.
business bank account, credit cards,
Mhm.
software. We even have like Brendan Burchard's Growth Day, which is a great app for like motivation and education, other things like that that are all available on that like recommended items. And it's fun because I actually get those questions. I don't, again, don't consider myself an influencer, but if you get one DM that's like, hey, what
Yeah.
do you use for this? Like that's an opportunity.
No, 100%. Yeah. You really don't. That's actually a question I get all the time. Like, how many followers do I need to be an influencer? And I'm like, why are you
One to
thinking
DM
of,
you.
yeah, literally, like, why are you thinking that? And actually, I think like if you do have like 500 followers, like those are like highly engaged followers, I imagine. Like those are 500 of like what is likely your friends, like real friends.
Yeah.
And they want to know what you're, wearing.
They're probably closely following too, because if you have 500 followers, it's probably like a closer circle. When you think about it, you have that inner
Yeah.
circle, and then you're just adding outer circles as you get bigger, but like they're
hmm
less engaged most likely.
hmm
Um, Now it comes and goes, right? The number of followers doesn't really matter anymore, but I know
hmm
that people are trying to put labels. Do you kind of subscribe to this? Because there's labels of like micro influencer,
hmm
like there's now different tiers, and
Yeah. I
I can't
usually
keep up
just
with all the
say
labels.
micro and macro. Like, I feel like
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, actually I've seen more brands wanting to work with micro creators, like as low as 5,000 followers or less
Hmm.
recently, because they're doing more like UGC campaigns where it's like we want to gift the product or pay them like 50 to $100 to just create content that we can repurpose versus more like awareness campaigns, which would be with like the macro influencers.
Well, and it's going to be niche based. Like
Yeah.
here's an example, right? For example, like if there was an accounting software program,
Hmm.
then I could be a target because it's like, hey, you have a podcast, you have 5,000 followers on Instagram, you have these different things.
Hmm.
Talk about our software, talk about our product, right? That wouldn't be
Yeah.
unheard of because they know that people who buy that product follow me.
Right.
It's really about just targeting the right person to talk about it. And it's
Hmm.
really no different than asking someone to, like, if they go into a store, asking someone, hey, can you leave us a good review if you had a good experience?
Hmm.
It's really
Hmm.
not that different than that whole process. And I think that brands are underutilizing that in terms of like
Hmm.
really free marketing sometimes, but honestly, the influencer side, I think is being underutilized in terms of being utilized creatively. I think everyone thinks you have to go big or not go at all.
Hmm. Hmm. And yeah, and that's
What
just
are
like, it's not true.
Yeah, and what are some of the I want to ask you this, like if you can think of some examples, some of the like hell yeses and hell nos that you've seen come through. The ones that are like this was a great
Hmm.
deal because it was a good match or because it was a great opportunity for the influencer for the brand, like this one was a home run for everybody
Hmm.
versus yeah, no. Like maybe it was a ridiculous expectation or low fee or what are some of the
Yeah.
things that have crossed your desk that have been kind of on the extreme ends?
Yeah, I think it's
And don't you have to
usually.
name names, by the way. You don't have
Yeah,
to name
no,
names.
yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah.
I think
No.
usually it's always the ones that are like a hell no, is like the one that is like, okay, well, it's a good brand, their budget is super low, but okay, we're gonna do it anyways. Like you're kind of going into it with this feeling of like, I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to. And then
Yeah.
those are the ones that are like always the worst. Like it's the brand that like micromanages the heck out of it. Like it's such a disaster. You have to reshoot it like 5 times to get what they want. And then like you get it live and they're like complaining to you in your inbox about sales. Like that is like a disaster zone. Like I don't want that.
Hmm.
But then I think the ones that are like a hell yes would be like the one I mentioned earlier, where it's like giving the creator the like freedom to create the content on their own terms, and just being like a good partner and like a nice person to work with. I think that's like the thing that it comes down to at the end of the day. Like I have people like on a blacklist where I'm like, this person has been so nasty to me during this process. I'm like, how are they getting away with this? Like, how and why are you treating us like this? So I think for me, it's like just be an easy person to work with, and that's a hell yes.
Love that. What would be your tips for someone who wants to get more attention as an influencer or wants to be attractive to brands where like if they go through these different outlets that you mentioned and they search, like how do you show up and like stand
Mhm.
out as an influencer to be selected or to be searched for?
Yeah, I mean, I think first off, like diversify your content platform. So like be active on Instagram and TikTok first, of course, if you can, like YouTube and YouTube Shorts. So that would, and also use tons of video. Brands want video now, so like post video. And then there's tons of platforms that you can join as like a micro or macro creator that brands utilize to find influencers. So Aspire IQ would be an example of that. I think you can have like literally any size following and apply to that, and it's literally where brands can reach out to you and work with you. Another one would be Forecard. I think too, just like with your content, tap tagging and tagging the brands that you want to get in front of is a great start. The people running the platforms of these brands is usually also the person that does the influencer programming. So just start tagging them, DMing, engaging with their content. It's like a great way to get right in front of them.
That's true too. Yeah. I think that like we're not always utilizing all the features at our disposal to do that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's really
Yeah.
helpful. Even if you're not talking about the brand, like you can just tag shirt that you're wearing or
Yep.
shoes that you're wearing, right? Or
Yeah,
like
that's so
coffee
true.
that you're
Mm-hmm.
drinking.
Yep, exactly.
I love that. Love that. So you mentioned how you, in a nutshell, Allie, how do you help influencers, help brands, and what do you do for them so we can learn more about your services?
Yeah, definitely. So, Be Social does both, which I think is kind of rare in the industry. Usually, you kind of have like one that just focuses on brand or just on creator. We do both, and we feel like it helps both of the clients we work with on both sides. So, on the creator side of our business, we help influencers 360 with social media monetization. So, typically, like I would say 80% of that is coming from brand partnerships, brand endorsements. So having L'Oreal pay influencer X to do a partnership on their social media. But we also help with like getting book deals or book agents or TV agents and kind of like managing that process. Like
Hmm.
we're managers, like in the traditional sense, like a manager. But most of it is living on the social media side of it and working with brands. Also, just like growth hacking and things like that to continue to ensure that our influencers are growing and getting impressions because that's a big part of it, right? And then on the other side of the business, we work with brands and help them with their influencer strategy. So with influencer casting, paying influencers, gifting, doing experiences. So like planning a big brunch or something and getting influencers to come. Also, developing creative mailers to send to influencers. So basically, all things influencer, we have a touch point on.
Love it. Love it. And how can folks get in touch with you and your company to potentially work together?
Yeah, our website is besocialgroup.com. We have like a contact email there. That's perfect. We're also on Instagram at besocialgroup.
Amazing. Make sure you're following along with Be Social Group with Allie. And thank you so much, Allie, for sharing all your knowledge about this area with our listeners. I know that there's so much we can take away and so many different resources that you mentioned. We're going to try to link them all in the show notes if we can.
Yeah.
But again, thank you so much for your time and joining me today.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
All right. We'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.